Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's Knowledge Bank. Today, the webinar is being hosted by Tom Shrive, Chief Product and AI Officer at Adiuvo, and we are going to be covering AI quick wins for property managers. If you have any questions, then please submit them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will try to get through as many as possible at the end of the webinar. The webinar is being recorded today and will be available to watch back on the News on the Block YouTube channel. If you would like a copy of the slides, please let us know, and myself or Tom will be able to send them to you after the webinar. That is all from me. I am now going to hand you over to Tom to begin.
Thanks, Vicky. Really appreciate that. Good morning, everybody. So yeah, thanks, Vicky, for the introduction. So my name is Tom. I'm the Chief Product and AI Officer at Adiuvo. That's actually going to be another introduction in a minute. But today I'm just going to be walking you through AI, giving you a feel. I'm hoping to get the right balance of, I'm hoping that you come away today with learning a little bit about how AI works, and also hopefully inspired to give it a go. So I'm going to be walking through some kind of the way to approach AI adoption, so rolling out AI in your company, specifically with a lens, obviously, for block managers. And then I'll be touching on some other, I'll be kind of giving some demos as well, just to kind of hopefully create a little bit of that inspiration. But here we go. So AI, I'm sure everyone's heard of it. It's kind of the peak hype, I would say, right about now. Some of the news articles that have been coming out about AI in the last 3 months, really. So Klarna, I don't know if you know Klarna, but they do like kind of buy now, pay later tool, basically. So at checkout of a website, you can kind of delay your payment. So they've just rolled out an AI assistant. So I think they did that about 3 months ago, or you can see there February 2024. And they're now claiming that AI assistant is so effective that it can handle about 2/3 of their customer service chats. That's obviously pretty powerful, because I think they have about 200 people who used to be doing that job. That's reduced all the way down to a third, which is pretty significant savings. And I think if we're also looking at kind of generally where we're at right now, I read in the Telegraph, I think the other day, that 1 in 5 GPs now use AI to do their daily tasks, and also suggesting diagnosis, which is maybe a little bit scary. That we've got doctors, at least 1 in 5 doctors, at least using it for some kind of inspiration, backup, whatever it is. But I was quite surprised by that fact, just simply because it is such a not high risk, but it's a thing you don't want to get wrong, right? And then we've got obviously people like the CEO of Google or Alphabet saying that AI is going to be more profound than both fire and electricity. Been saying the same thing for years, but is probably some truth in it. And then we've got the Amazon CEO very recently just came out and said, look, it's saved us about 4,500 years in development. So that's obviously, I think that's specifically in relation to, they had a couple of projects that they wanted to convert code. So, code software, all software is written with code. So they wanted to convert old school software, some old software that they had, into modern day software. And they were able to use AI for that. And apparently that saved them about 4,500 years. So I guess the main takeaway is AI is happening, and we're starting now. Although there's a lot of hype and a lot of buzz out there, we are now starting to see some valid use cases for AI. And it is starting to actually deliver some real tangible results for companies. And hopefully today, as I walk through, I'm going to show you some of those areas where it could deliver real tangible results for you as a block manager. So this is actually kind of wind back again. I've recorded this using AI, so I'm going to let myself kind of introduce myself again. We're all reset. So in a second,
Perfect.
Real Tom is going to share some thoughts on how to use AI to deliver some quick wins for property managers. But before he does, it's worth introducing him. In 2023, Tom sold his Google-backed AI real estate company, Ask Porter, to Germany's largest facilities operator, Visag, and now serves as chair of the Red Foundation AI board and chief product and AI officer at Adiuvo, a property and technology services company serving over 1 million properties.
So in a nutshell, this was recorded using HeyGen. So we actually use HeyGen quite a lot at Adiuvo. We use it principally for recording staff training videos and things like that. It's actually really, really helpful. So basically you record yourself once and then you can type in anything you want to tell people, explain to people. And it does so in quite a nice way. You can also add in slides or kind of explainers in there. So that's one tool that we do use quite a bit. It's saved us quite a lot of time having to kind of record individual webinars and etc. every single time. So that's that. In terms of agenda today, I'm just gonna, as I mentioned, just gonna quickly go through some intros. I'm gonna set the scene. I'm gonna explain a little bit about what AI is, what the AI landscape is. Hopefully, you'll learn something from that. And then I'm going to explain a little bit more about what the new big thing is in AI specifically right now. So there's been some news from OpenAI. So I'll give you a little walkthrough of what that means and what the implications of that are. So you're kind of caught up, perfectly up to date, hopefully by the end of this. And then I'm going to be walking through just how we take some of that. So once we kind of have an understanding of what AI is and how it's working, how we can leverage that. Obviously, we're all in the property industry. A lot of what we do is for block managers at Adiuvo. So it's really about kind of leveraging that AI to get some quick wins, but also understanding how AI might be benefiting the business on a slightly longer term horizon as well. So hopefully I'll cover off both of those things in that section. And then we'll just give it a go. So I'll do some demos so you can kind of get a feel for how AI works and hopefully come away a little bit inspired to give it a go yourself. It should be, I'm going to try and stick to about 45 minutes, but if it overruns slightly because we had that slight technical issue, then it might take a little bit longer, but I'm going to try and save some time for questions at the end. So I'm going to start off with a little video from Steve Jobs, and it is relevant. I'm not just I think it's obligatory for everyone in tech to be sharing a Steve Jobs video at some point, but I'll share this quickly because there is relevant and it does flow through a theme that I want to walk through for the rest of the presentation.
I think one of the things that really separates us from the high primates is that we're tool builders. And I read a study that measured the efficiency of locomotion for various species on the planet. The condor used the least energy to move a kilometer. And humans came in with a rather unimpressive showing about a third of the way down the list. It was not too proud of a showing for the crown of creation. So that didn't look so good. But then somebody at Scientific American had the insight to test the efficiency of locomotion for a man on a bicycle. And a man on a bicycle, or a human on a bicycle, blew the condor away, completely off the top of the charts. And that's what a computer is to me. What a computer is to me is it's the most remarkable tool that we've ever come up with. And it's the equivalent of a bicycle for our minds.
So obviously, Steve Jobs there saying, a computer is essentially a bicycle for the mind, and actually turns humans into one of the most efficient. It basically accelerates our human intellect and our ability. So if we kind of take that analogy a little bit further forward, what I want to kind of explain is that AI is really, if computers are a bicycle for the mind, then you can think of AI as kind of like a motorbike or an e-bike, depending on how eco environmentally friendly you want to be. But it's essentially a motorbike for the mind. So that means it kind of accelerates our productivity and our abilities even further beyond that of a bicycle, and it actually does a lot of the power for us. So kind of running with that analogy, what does that mean if it's a motorbike for the mind? Firstly, it means you're not going to have to pedal quite as much. So that lots of that kind of human effort that you used to take to do tasks, etc., you're going to see that reduced significantly. it's going to make going uphill significantly easier. The other things to note, of course, obviously, it does require some fuel. I think we all know that AI is relatively expensive when it comes to energy usage or electricity. That being said, they did do an interesting study that a human to do the same task actually use significantly more energy than the AI would use to do the same task. So we all need energy, I guess, is the main lesson. But it does cost as well. There is a cost to AI. So when we look further on in this presentation, we're going to look at kind of making sure that the ROI is real. So not every task needs AI. Not every AI doesn't make sense for every single task. So it's worth kind of picking out which tasks you can actually deliver the ROI on. And then the other things just to mention in this slide as well. So, if we look at that, AI is a motorbike for the mind. It still requires steering. I think that's probably the main thing I'd say here. It's not going to do your job for you. You still need to ride the motorbike, right? So you still need to direct and control and give feedback to the AI. And that's absolutely critical. Otherwise, you're going to end up with really poor results. So everything that we do today, you'll see there's a lot of backwards and forwards and a lot of steering and a lot of directing of the AI. And I think that's going to be the case for a very long time to come. And it actually really accentuates the knowledge that you need. So the more knowledgeable you are in your domain, say block management, the more you're able to effectively steer the AI. I think that's a really important point because you know what's wrong instinctively and what's right. So when you ask AI to perform a task or do something, it's much, much easier the more knowledge you are to be able to quickly spot an error, quickly spot a mistake, and direct it in the way that it needs to be directed. And then the final thing just to note here is obviously you need to know exactly where you're going. So it's all very well steering the AI, making sure it doesn't mess up, but there's also a question of what is the goal, what is it you want to achieve, what's the end destination. So much like in a motorbike, you set the map and the destination. It's worth doing the same with AI. And I think with every business, it's worth going, well, look, in 5 years, 10 years, let's assume AI keeps improving. What is it I want AI to be doing? And what is it that I want to be doing myself? I think that's really, really important. So to just set the scene very quickly on AI itself, I think it's worth just having a little bit of background knowledge. I'm sure many of you do know, so apologies if this is boring and kind of too basic. But the way I've kind of done it here, I'm going to drop RPA in because it's a very helpful automation tool. But if we look at RPA, which is robotic process automation, the easiest way to look at that is it's kind of like a human body. And essentially, like any body, our bodies attached to our minds, but obviously our bodies are designed to carry out the thinking or the thoughts or the actions of our minds. So, I want to grab a cup of tea. My body is the thing that carries out that action. That's what RPA does in a nutshell for most kind of software-based applications of AI. So you'll have an AI brain, and then that will be able to actually now use all the software that you have at your disposal. So if you've got a CRM that you use, or you've got Outlook or anything like that, it is now possible for AI to control those applications remotely, much like the body, the mind controlling the body to get a cup of tea. It's able to control that and actually do individual tasks within those other applications. So, for example, AI is able to send an email. AI is able to add in a new entry into a CRM. AI is able to process an invoice, etc. Then we've got kind of machine vision, and there's a bit of blurring in some of this stuff, but this is essentially the eyes, the human eyes. So this is enabling AI to be able to see things and interpret things. So it's able to see images, understand videos, and obviously there's interesting implications for this. So things like security monitoring, be able to look at footage from cameras, security cameras, and to be able to interpret them instantly without a human having to look at them. So if there's something unusual, it can spot it. Same thing for maintenance inspection. We're able to very quickly see, if something's broken or what part might need to be replaced. There's a lot of kind of value in that as well, because again, AI has such a access to such a broad knowledge base that it's very quickly able to look up some of that stuff. Lease abstraction, which we do have a demo later on in that, it's able to look at, you know, a document, a lease, and it's able to very quickly pull out all the relevant information that, and then kind of abstract that into a form that works for you. Things like invoice management, etc. It's you get the idea. It looks at something and then it interprets it and then has an action off the back of it. And then we've got predictive AI, which is kind of the more traditional kind of machine learning side of stuff. You don't need to know all about that, but essentially that's the logic brain. So you've kind of got two parts of the brain. You've got the logic brain, and the logic brain is kind of really about, this is kind of about forecasting, looking at historical things that have happened and making, you know, predictions based on what might happen in the future. That's obviously beneficial for finance, making kind of forecasting and all that kind of stuff. And then we've got the new kid on the block. And I do have another couple of slides just to explain a little bit more about generative AI, because I think it does help to give a little bit more of an awareness. But this is the creative brain. So this is very much about, you know, the ability for it to be able to create or to think. And that's what you're seeing right now. Things like chatbots, the ability to draft emails, and come across as a human. That's kind of what, and again, I'm going to touch on a little bit more about this to explain it. But that's what we're starting to see. So you're starting to see it. Also, you may have used some of the image generation stuff as well, to be able to kind of type in a prompt, say, I want to see a cat with antlers, let's say an antler cat, and then it's able to generate that image as well. So that's very much kind of, we're now seeing AI is able to actually perform that creative function as well. So real quick, I'm just going to get us through it. What is generative AI in a nutshell? If I told you what, if I kind of told you, look, there's London and there's Paris, but you'd never been to the world before, and you have no context for where London or Paris is. So it's not very helpful. I tell you there's a city called London, and I tell you there's a city called Paris. But it's very hard to work out any relationship between those two cities or what they even mean. If then I tell you that London has these coordinates, and then I tell you Paris has these coordinates, and then I tell you and explain to you how the coordinate system works on Earth, you're able to really, as an alien, let's say, that's never visited Earth before, you're able to very quickly understand, okay, well, you know, Paris is actually pretty close to London in comparison to something like New York. So it gives you context about where these two things are and how they relate to each other. And that's the main thing that you need to understand about AI. In a nutshell, AI gives a number, like a coordinate, to every single concept that we have. So it'll give a coordinate to a dog, and it'll give a coordinate or a number to a dog, and it'll give a number as well to a puppy. And it's able to understand the relationship between a dog and a puppy based on the similarity of those numbers. That's literally kind of really all you need to know. So same thing with cat and a kitten. So it can understand there's a relationship between those two numbers because the number similarity in certain areas, there's a relationship. And it's able to also understand that it's a similar type of relationship that a dog and a puppy and a cat and a kitten have because of how those numbers play out. And obviously then what it's able to do is understand even more how all these different concepts relate. So once you have a relationship, a numerical relationship between the dog and the cat, you're able to then understand how everything in the world starts to kind of link and what those relationships are. So it's not really magic, it's not really whatever, but everything you type into ChatGPT is because it understands the relationships between all these different things that we have on Earth. So that's what it's going to learn. It's going to suck in all the information from the internet, and that's how it's learned how all these different things relate to each other by basically just giving numbers to everything we have on Earth. So what that enables us to do, again, to kind of like demystify how it works. So what that enables us to do is when we say the things like a sentence like the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy, we know it's dog because we've seen that so many times. And the AI knows it's dog, or the probability of it being dog is pretty high because it's seen that phrase many times on the internet. So it's able to predict the next word, and that's all it does. It predicts the next word based on the previous words that have gone. But it is because it's drawing that understanding of how the concepts, so it understands what so for this second sentence here, it understands what a tomato is, and it understands what a pear is, and it understands the relationship because it's sucked in all that information from the internet, and it does understand how they relate to each other. It's therefore able to answer something quite obscure like, what can I make from a tomato and a pear and some baked beans? It's definitely not going to be good, whatever it is. I think when I did ask this question, it told me to ignore the baked beans and just make a tomato and pear salad, which is probably the right thing to do in that situation. But what it's doing is it's just understanding the relationships, and then it's predicting the next words. So this is kind of an example of what that all wraps up. So this is actually a demo of OpenAI's latest, not quite latest model, but it's there. It demonstrates some of the capability of what you're able to do once you start ingesting. Once AI is able to look at video, understand video, and also understand text and images.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey there, it's going great. How about you? I see you're rocking an OpenAI hoodie. Nice choice. What's up with that ceiling though? Are you in a cool industry style office or something?
Well, can you take a guess at what I might be doing based on what I'm showing you here?
From what I can see, it looks like you're in some kind of recording or production setup. With those lights, tripods, and possibly a mic, it seems like you might be gearing up to shoot a video or maybe even a live stream.
Yeah. In fact, we've got a new announcement to make.
That's exciting. Announcements are always a big deal. Judging by the setup, it looks like it's going to be quite the professional production. Is this announcement related to OpenAI, perhaps?
It is. And in fact, what if I were to say that you're related to the announcement, or that you are the announcement?
Me? The announcement is about me? Well, color me intrigued. Are you about to reveal?
Yeah, so you get the idea there. Essentially, what it's able to do is have pretty meaningful and pretty at least human sounding conversations. And the way it's able to do that is all because of that stuff that we talked about there. It understands the relationships between different concepts that we have, and then it's able to predict the next word. But I think what's important, we've obviously talked about all these different things, the body, the eyes, the logic brain, the creative brain. And sorry, I am simplifying some of this, by the way. So it's not always perfect analogies, but hopefully it makes sense. The one thing that we don't have, that it doesn't have, at least up to now, is the ability to reason. So that's the kind of, it is just really the best analogy I can give you is generative AI is a little bit like when you're a kid and there's a boy or a girl or that you find really attractive, and they come up to you, and generative AI, much like you would do in that situation, well, certainly I did, you just spit out anything that came to mind. So sometimes you panic and you just spit out words. That's kind of not dissimilar from how generative AI works in that respect. It's just predicting the next word, and it's just spitting out words. Now they sound right and believable, but it's not really thinking about them. Up to about a week ago, I would have told you that AI doesn't have the ability to actually think about words before it says them. That has now changed. OpenAI now has launched a new model that essentially does now think before it speaks, in a nutshell. And we've actually seen both Google and OpenAI now have managed to solve maths problems, something that they weren't able to do historically, but they're able to solve maths problems at a silver level at the Maths Olympiad, which is a pretty big deal. There's only a very few people on Earth that are able to solve maths at that level. So it does unlock a whole load of new use cases for that. So, so what does that mean from a kind of what's it actually doing different? Essentially, what it's doing, historically, all the generative AI models used to just train. So they used to spend all their money and all their time training these large language models that they're called. And then again, they used to just spit out the information. So once it's learned, so you can kind of compare it to a student spending all their time studying, but then when it comes to the exam, they weren't really thinking about the questions. They're just like looking at a question real quick and start answering. Now, I think if at university or school or whatever, I looked at a question for 5 seconds and just wrote anything that came to mind, I'm probably not going to score very well, which is essentially what we're talking about here. Whereas the new model from OpenAI now thinks about the question. So it takes the time and it plans the response, much like you would, when you're writing an essay response in a test, plans the response, it formulates what that response should look like. So we're seeing a much improved capability in terms of what the output is and how useful that output is from an AI perspective. That's all very nice. So hopefully I haven't confused you, and hopefully you understand a little bit more about how AI works in the current kind of state of play with AI. I'm just going to cover off now how you can go about thinking about how AI can work for you. So the first thing that I did when I joined Adiuvo and what we do is that we kind of mapped what we did, and actually it might surprise you, but lots of what we do wasn't necessarily mapped or really understood. So what we spend a little bit of time is just kind of mapping out the high level, and it doesn't have to be too in depth, but it was really helpful to wind back and just say, look, what is it we do as a company? What goals do we want to achieve, and what tasks do we have to do to achieve those goals? It's the best way of thinking about it. What goals do we want to achieve, and what tasks do we have to do to kind of to achieve those goals? And then we kind of really focused and doubled down on the problem areas of the business. Every business has problems. They may not be kind of critical problems, but they might be opportunities for improvement. So there might be small problems that you can fix that are worth kind of focusing on. Some of them will be big, some of them small. So then once you kind of got that list, then we looked at, okay, well, this is what we do. This is the kind of the problem areas with what we do. And then it's looking at how can technology, what's the feasibility that technology today in the state of AI right now is able to solve some of those issues. Now, it's not always obvious, so I would always recommend that there's lots of free AI tools, OpenAI, ChatGPT. As long as you use, the one caveat I would say, as well as a takeaway from this, do not put any organizational data into the free tier of ChatGPT, because they use that data for retraining their models. So it's really, really critical. You can try for free, play around with it by all means, put in like anonymous data that's not wouldn't be breaching any GDPR stuff. But as soon as you put client information or any other information into ChatGPT, you need to upgrade to the business package. And that applies for most AI tools. Always check the terms and conditions, but most of them now will say, will have a tier or something like that that you have to, or a box that you have to tick to say, do not use my information for retraining, because ultimately it's not just your data, it is also your client data and your customer data. So that's really important. But yeah, what I then say is play around with the technology and understand what the feasibility is. And hopefully today I'll give you some examples of that as well. So you might get a feel for what is possible and what's not possible. And then I'd say really just focus on the easy wins. So like anything in life, I'm a bit lazy. Try and focus on the lowest amount of effort that you can give for the highest impact. That's what you should be doing. But at the beginning, just focus on anything that's low effort and maybe even low impact as well. Because if you get it wrong or whatever, it's not gonna be the worst possible thing. So I'd say the easy wins, I wouldn't even be too worried about impact at this stage. I would start small, low effort. I'd even possibly start with something low impact as well, just so you can get a feel for how it works and what it does. And there's a lot of stuff out there that can support with some of that stuff. And then once you've done that, it's about developing a roadmap to what those big wins look like. So the things that might ultimately, obviously there's some great stuff that's low effort and high impact. Absolutely focus on those afterwards. But obviously there's going to be some real big wins that will only come with quite a high lot of effort that you have to do. But obviously, I would really kind of suggest that you save those for kind of later down the road. Especially, we've got a lot of quick wins that we can deliver right now with the current state of AI. So I wouldn't be trying to go in it for anything big, like the complete automation of I don't know, your entire maintenance process or something like that. There's smaller chunks that you can bite off before you tackle those kind of things. Obviously, it goes without saying, don't be dumb and don't do a high effort and don't spend a lot of effort doing something that's ultimately going to be relatively low impact. So it is helpful for you to understand and map those. I put this here, and I'm sure you are the experts. I'm definitely, basically what I did is I kind of worked with ChatGPT to pull some of these together. So this is just an example of what the goals are for a block manager. So whether it's kind of onboarding new blocks, maintaining those properties, coordinating with residents and stakeholders, implementing review policies for insurance policies, monitoring property performance, handling disputes. So I'm going all over the show here. I'm just picking out random ones, but I probably should have gone top to bottom. Planning out major works, things like that. So there's obviously, those are the kind of the core goals. So this is how you can think about it when you look at your business. Those are kind of the core goals that you need to be doing in order to be able to deliver value to your customers. So once you kind of got those, then you can kind of dive down a layer deep and just go, well, okay, let's look at onboarding a property. What tasks do I need to do in order to be able to successfully onboard a property? There's a number of tasks. I'm not going to go through all of them, but obviously, things like uploading all block-related documents and PDFs. First of all, getting those documents, uploading them all, abstracting that information so you can actually use that information rather than having to look through all the documents to go find all the information. You then have to kind of set them up. I'm sure you have some kind of Excel spreadsheet maybe, or some kind of CRM piece of software that you use to be able to manage those blocks and all those information, so you can really quickly look it up rather than kind of being lost again in the filing system somewhere. And then it's kind of, there's a verification, validate up against land registry and any other local authorities and things like that. So you get the picture. All of our businesses consist of a goal and a series of tasks in order to kind of that need to be done in order to deliver that. And then it's about, once you kind of got that all mapped out, and then it's, and by the way, AI is fantastic for again, you can put this straight into ChatGPT and say, look, this is what I do for a job. Can you give me a first draft, all these different tasks that I do? And then you can just go back and validate them. But for documentation and stuff like that, it does save an awful lot of time. And then it's kind of just looking at, well, okay, what, when we look at that, what are the opportunities across all those different things that I do? What areas, what problems do I have? And what areas do I think, from what I understand, AI might be able to support with? So this is, again, by no means a definitive list of areas that AI could help with. But there's a couple of things I'll just pick out that we found from an Adiuvo perspective that we also found were going to be actually quite kind of low effort potentially, or medium effort in some cases, but they deliver quite high wins, high impact wins. So for us, things like we use AI for bid and tender proposal writing. So we do that. We have a big problem with kind of lots of documents and lots of data that comes to us in ways that are not necessarily the same. So we've got about 400 clients. Every single client sends us data in slightly different formats, slightly different ways. So being able to process that data, whether it's in document format or raw kind of data, and then make sense of it and put it into a format that works for us, that's what we found really, really powerful with AI. I've got a little demo on that in a minute. Things like regulatory compliance monitoring. I've actually, interestingly, I've got another little demo in a minute as well. I've just discovered a new thing called Notebook LM, which is just wildly, it's blown my mind a little bit. But you can put in a piece of quite complex legislation, for example, and you can ask it to explain it to you in a podcast format. which is weird because you just have these two people explaining to you leasehold reform, and it was helpful, and I learned something. But yeah, it's an interesting way to help you absorb some of that knowledge and help you understand what you might need to pay attention to or listen to. And then yeah, look, we've got this. The other big thing for us, obviously, Adiuvo, we do a lot of resident call handling. So we have deployed our own AI resident assistant, and we're getting significant gains from that. And I've got a little slide on that in a minute. But more basic stuff like just doing meeting summaries. So we use an AI tool to summarize all our meetings. It's called Circleback. So interested in that. But does a really good job of capturing all the notes and then presenting you with actions to make sure you don't miss anything. Might be handy for resident meetings and things like that as well. Other things we're starting to do, we are also, from an Adiuvo perspective, we're automating work order management. So the ability to go out and get free quotes and just handle all that backwards and forwards with contractors as well, because that was a big time drain for us, things like that. I think the other one important thing it might just be worth mentioning is specifically relating to coding, because it is a big change that we're starting to see. Because AI is having such an impact, it's enabling lots of our developers. So we've got a team of about 6 developers now. I would say in the last 3 months, each developer is able to perform at least 50% to code 50% more productive, basically, which is a pretty material impact there. So we are seeing the cost of doing anything tech or building any products is starting to drop, and I expect that to drop significantly. So it does open the door to a lot more things, a lot more possibilities, and you don't necessarily need to code in many cases. You can just talk to the machine and say, please write me this code, which is super interesting. So yeah, the main thing I would say, with any of this stuff is making sure that when you look at these tasks that AI does, is the amount of effort that it's going to take to do this right now, where we are right now, is it going to deliver an ROI? I've got a little calculator that I can share after this. If anyone's interested, you can just reach out to me. I've got my details on the thing that you can look at that and understand, does it make sense for me to use AI for this particular task or this particular process? That's kind of what we aim for, is like a 2x in 4 years. So we want to be returning twice the amount of cash that we spent to build anything within 4 years. If it doesn't look like that's going to happen, we park it, and maybe it's something for later. So this is really about giving it a go. So I've got some little demos here, just to kind of showcase. These are, I'm going to be using, to start off with, I'm going to be using free tools, just using chat GPT for some of these. So I've got major works. So this is about kind of major works planning, essentially. So if I just go on here, was that asbestos one, wasn't it? Yeah. So, and by the way, you could upload, I'm just saving time from typing here, but by the way, you could upload images, you could upload anything into here, you could upload documents of previous works that you have, but let's give it a go. It's easy to see here. This is something it didn't used to do, is thinking, navigating the complexity. Yeah. So what's interesting here is, again, we're not saying that this is just going to be, you can just take this and say, well, it's done all my work for me. Again, come back to that motorbike analogy. You've got to steer it in the right direction, and you've got to kind of, redirect it at certain times. But what it has done is given me quite a first glance, considering I've never had to plan major works for a block management company. But what it has shown me here is, there's, for asbestos removal, there's certain certifications and regulations that I need to be adhering to. And it's given me kind of a blow-by-blow account of how I can go and do this. And I can now interrogate this. I can go further. I can ask for more information. I can ask for it to flesh out slightly more areas. But it's pretty handy in that it does act as a second brain, I think, adds as a good backup, just to make sure that, again, the one thing I would mention with this is what it's saying here. It's to come back to that point of your expertise is, if anything, more important now in the age of AI than it used to be. That knowledge that that some of this is right, some of this might not be right. So there is still a problem, even though this new model hallucinates a lot less than it used to. And by hallucination, I mean sometimes it just makes stuff up. And the reason, by the way, it makes stuff up is because it hasn't been trained to achieve a goal, or it hasn't been trained that truth is really, really important. What it's been trained to do is to come up with something that sounds right. So anyway, what you can see here is it does a pretty good job at outlining all the different steps that I would need to do to remove asbestos from this large block. And yeah, there is the option as well for me to upload images and all that kind of stuff, and it can even kind of interpret the information within those images and say, well, yeah, look, I can kind of, in some cases, I've even gone it to get it to kind of give me a cost estimate of what that might be taking. But things like that, I think, save an awful lot of time. So it is a bit of a quick win. You might tell me that's absolute rubbish, that you don't need it for that at all, and you're perfectly happy to do it by yourself. But it's helpful for me coming cold from it. And there's this other thing here. So just to give you an example, change the model I use. So let me just drag in a fire risk assessment, for example. I don't know what I say, cool. So I need to notify residents to write me a professional but friendly email to the leaseholders. About this report. So what I'll do, it'll check through the report and it will, I've asked the client, by the way, but so what it's able to do is save me a lot of time, right? It's a first draft again, needs a bit of steering, but what I've got here is a pretty compelling email that can go out highlighting the key areas from the report that they need to be aware of and what's going to be happening. Again, all about saving those little kind of quick wins. It's still requires a lot of guiding. Where's my deck? I'm just going to get lost in them. There we go. Right. So another couple of things, just while we're on demo mode, that I will tell you. This is this was just something that I found the other day, which was white. Blew my mind a little bit. So if we go here, and this is why it's always just fun, just to kind of, I actually just did this last night because I wanted to see if I could upload a leasehold reform document and see if it could analyze it and see what happens. So what it's able to do is look at the leasehold reform guide, basically, that I uploaded, and then it's changed it into a podcast. Hopefully you can hear this, but this is pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool.
Ever feel like ground rent for leaseholders in England and Wales was, well, a bit of a raw deal?
Yeah, it's certainly been a point of contention.
Well, hold on to your hats, folks, because the legal landscape just got a serious makeover. We're diving deep into the Leasehold Reform Ground Rent Act 2022. And no worries, we're cutting through the legal jargon to bring you the facts straight from the official source.
It's a fascinating piece of legislation, really.
I'm not going to listen to it now. I can share it afterwards if anyone's interested. But it's about 10. You can change the time, but you can dial up to like 20 minutes and give you a complete breakdown and like a really engaging format of what the latest legislation is. So for stuff like that, when it comes through, it might be quite a nice way to kind of absorb some of that knowledge. And there's things like Scribe. Well, I can share a list of all these different tools after this session as well, but things like Scribe, where you can use it to record instruction and training videos, and you just sit there and say, you can record your screen and it'll change and it'll turn it into an instruction guide and a manual. It's actually really, really powerful and saves a lot of time. The other two quick demos, if you can indulge me a little bit, I won't go into Adiuvo. I mentioned it. We look after about 1 million properties, typically out of hours, and we handle kind of resident inquiries out of hours, but also now 24/7 as well. We are launching our own tech products, specifically leveraging AI for the property sector. I'm going to quickly demo two of those. One of them is Eve. which is our intelligent document system. So one of those areas, as I mentioned, problem areas for us was about extracting data, different types of data that our clients sent us, and making sense of it. Just a quick note, when I do the demo, it's still early days. We've extracted about 250 documents, 92% accuracy. So we found it to be more accurate than a human doing a similar task. And yeah, we've had about 1,000 different queries. So you're able to interact with all the data once it's extracted, much like you would a human, just by asking questions. So let me just quickly give you a demo of that. Sorry, this is about, so you're also able, by the way, on our system to be able to configure your own chatbot on your assistants. So anyone can have their own resident assistant, and you can populate all the FAQs for your company. And it'll triage maintenance issues and all that kind of stuff as well. But you can, yeah, this is how you go and create those assistants. I'm going to skip through that right now. And you can see here now, I'm just going to go through, sorry, I'm just going to go through uploading a, let me make that full screen. This is uploading these documents, put it in, tag it how you want. And then that will then upload the lease documents. So you can drag in as many as you want. And actually, it doesn't just work with leases, it works with fire risk, all that kind of stuff as well. And then we can provide basically what we do, what our AI does is provides a complete transcript. Might take a little bit longer. I might skip through that bit for the brevity of time. We'll see. But it transcribes it. There we go. And it also then abstracts it into a format that's right for you. So you can see basically all the PDF information's here. I've got approval to show this, so it's all fine. And then here we've got you can also then just chat to the AI assistant as well, which is super, super powerful. So yeah, and then our AI will actually go through all that document and therefore present a response. So what you're able to see here is that it saves an awful lot of time. So you're not digging around in documents. You can just be like, what's the situation with this? And it'll link you back to the exact point at which that data was all extracted. You also are able to see, just skip forward, every document that's uploaded into the platform, we also then pull out into a table. So this can be customized, so you can export it straight into a CRM or whatever it is. So in future, all you can do is just drag documents in, and it will take all the information out in the format that you want it to be in. Yeah, saves a lot of time, essentially. And then the other tool, so let me just go back to that deck, jumping around a bit here, and then the other tool is our Adi AI assistant. At the end of this, I can share a link, but essentially what we've done is we've trained Adi on all of our scripts. So we look after we've handled about 900,000 emergencies. So we've got really big scripts that we've trained our AI on. And we spend a lot of time kind of testing it out with our customers. And we've got to a point now where we're rolling out across all of our lines. So far, we've had about 4,000 conversations completed, 82% containment rate. That's the important number there to mention. The 82% containment rate means that in 82% of cases, we have not had to refer to a human. But when we do refer to a human, those conversations are typically quite complex. So what we're seeing is, again, to come back to it, knowledge and experience is much more important in the world of AI than it used to be. So we are seeing an upskilling of lots of our team, and so that expertise and that experience becomes critical. And actually, we're getting some really good reports coming in. So we're looking at like 4 out of 5 for the conversations that we've had. And I've been looking through all the transcripts religiously. It's a bit of an addiction every time someone reports something new, but I'm pretty happy with the result and more than happy to share some of that stuff. What's next? As I mentioned, the next big thing that we're going to be working on is kind of the automated quote part for contractors as well, because that's a big pain point for our business, and that's what we've identified. Things to watch out for while I kind of wrap up now. Obviously, there's data and integration challenges, getting data off systems. If you're choosing systems or looking at new systems, make sure that everything has an API. You can get, what is an API? An API is basically a way for machines or other software to talk to other bits of software without you having to get involved. So make sure that all the data you can get easily on and off any piece of software that you buy. And that is a challenge for running AI, because AI needs data. So if it's hard to get at the data that you have, then it's going to be hard it's going to make any AI solution that you have significantly harder to roll out. Training, testing, and alignment, you know what, that's been the biggest thing, and don't underestimate that. It's very easy to get something up quickly, but to make sure it's working correctly, for every conversation that our AI has, we want to make sure that it is having a good conversation. And we don't want to, the first thing that we hear is it's gone rogue and told someone to do something they shouldn't have done. So we have quite a mature, we have basically another AI that tests every single response. And we make sure that every single response when we push anything new out, is aligned with the best practice. So things like that are really, really important when it comes to it. Cybersecurity, you're going to see in the next 6 months to a year, you're going to see lots more deep fakes. It's now very easy for people to be able to appear on camera, make themselves look like someone else, make themselves sound like someone else. So always double check and call the person back. All those kind of things are really, really important. And don't trust what you see blindly anymore. Always check the sources, and always spend a lot of time doing so as well. And I think there's other causes here, there's other things, but I think the main thing just to come away with is, I do think not doing anything right now is probably the biggest concern. Genuinely, I think you're going to see, if you're not starting to prepare for a world of AI, because it's accelerating at such a speed, if you're not starting to prepare for that, there's going to come a point when all of a sudden the people that are preparing and are doing stuff are going to massively overtake you in terms of productivity and ability. So that's the one takeaway I would say, is really just start playing with it. The one thing I can say is, if you just want to give it a go, load up ChatGPT. It's free. Don't put any personal data into the free model. Again, just give it a go, play around with it. And I think you'll be impressed if you haven't done it already. And then from there, you'll start to think of all those different use cases that you might be able to deliver. Just going to finish up now. So what this means, think about it as a lens of value that you need to deliver. Or this is how we think about it, a lens of value. What's the value? The value in this case, let's say, is delivering parcels, right? If I'm one person, just by myself, I can deliver one parcel. If I have a bike, I can probably deliver 10 parcels. If I have a motorbike, I can probably deliver 100 parcels. Now, does the customer who's receiving the parcel care that I was on a bike, or if I did it by hand? Not really. What they care about is that they're getting the parcels delivered. And I think that's the one thing I would say is, don't assume your value. Really try and work out what your value is to the client. And then do everything that you can to make sure you can deliver more of that value. So, one human by themselves manage one property, or with computers and AI, that can be significantly accelerated. So again, to recap, start low effort and even low value, low impact. It doesn't matter. Just start something, give it a play around. You don't have to, cure the world in one quick go. I do think it's important to map out your business processes, understand what your goals are as a business, understand what those tasks are, and then start kind of at least have an idea of where you want to prioritize and where you think AI could deliver the most amount of value. I think that's really, really helpful. One thing, so NVIDIA, which is a company that provides basically computer chips, is anticipating that in the next 10 years, we are going to be able to do 1,000 times the current ability in terms of what we can compute. So what computers are capable of doing is going to be 1,000 times greater in the next 10 years. So just bear that in mind. Just when we talk about speed and how quick things are going to be changing from now. So I think, yeah, this is it for me. Will it enable me to add more value? Yes. To my clients? Yes, no. That's what we think about everything. If it's a no, if it's cutting away from the value, then don't do it. If it's enabling you to add value somewhere else, which is most of the case, then it's probably worth doing. And ultimately, I think with all this, you know, it's a very AI message, but just to come back to it, we are humans. The more time that we can spend with other humans, frankly, the better. So technology is all about this, right? It's all about enabling us to be able to spend more time with other humans, connecting, adding value to each other. And I think that's the one thing. So just all that back office stuff, all that other stuff that you've learned how to do, you should be kind of thinking, how can AI help me spend more of this time, this quality value time, than anything else. So that's it. I hope that was helpful. I realize I've covered a lot of ground there. Hope maybe learn something. Hope you're inspired to go out and give it a go, play around with some tools. I will happy to share some more of this slide deck, but also I've got some kind of a list of different tools that I use, I find useful. But there's my LinkedIn as well. You can add me and message me. That's all fine. Sorry, Vicky. Over to you.
That's all right, no worries. There's a couple of kind of brief questions here which we can try and run through. I think one is referring to kind of what you've just said, as Katie just said, thanks, Tom, this was really great. What was the video recording tool that you used at the beginning? And can you send a link, a list of the tools that you've demoed?
Just message me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, you can message Tom, Katie, or otherwise I can send out a PDF of the slides as well, which has got the tools all on there. Someone asked, is it ideal to purchase ChatGPT business version? Which I think you've kind of touched on.
Oh,
sorry, Vicky. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you still hear me?
yeah, okay. Sorry, my headphones just took over. Sorry, can you ask that question quickly again?
Yeah, someone was just asking if you think it's ideal to purchase the ChatGPT business version.
Yeah, no, you have to. So yeah, well, if you're just toying with it, just give it a go with the if you haven't used it before, give it a go with the personal version. That's fine, but don't put any client or customer data in. Get the business version before you do anything serious.
Okay. Just one more question, but I think they just wanted to go over the slides. They was asking if you could reshare the initial slide, which had the AI support for property management, RPM, generative AI. I can send out a copy of the slides if Tom provides them.
I'll send them slides.
You'll be able to go over that again. Whoever asked that question. And then just one more. Simon's asked, how does ChatGPT Business compare with Microsoft Pilot Business?
Yeah, so Copilot, Microsoft, the Copilot suite and stuff. I've used both. So my time at IAG, which is a company that owns British Airways, we did a lot of Microsoft stuff. I give it a go. I struggle. So Microsoft, their strategy is about embedding AI into all of their tools. I have always found, so for example, the latest AI, OpenAI model, which is the one in preview now, which is the one that Logic does the reasoning part. I don't believe is available in Copilot right now. I've also just found, personally, for me, if you're a Microsoft company, 100%, look, they have great tools. They Power Automate, Microsoft Copilot, all that kind of stuff. Give it a go. If ultimately it delivers enough, then that you want, then great. I've always found I always just default back to OpenAI, to be honest. And it's got the latest stuff, and it's easier for me personally. But look, happy again if you want to drop me a note on LinkedIn. I've used both Microsoft and we've deployed lots of Power Automate stuff. So happy to discuss that in more depth.
More like a preference, I guess, on trying them both and just seeing which one you prefer.
Yeah, exactly that. But if you've got the licenses, they are expensive, by the way. Microsoft licenses for Copilot are quite expensive, so it's not a no-brainer. So you need to make sure that you do use it and you do get the value from it.
Okay. I think that's all the questions finished. Thanks, Tom, for your time presenting. That was really useful. I've learned a few things as well, actually.
Okay, I hope so.
Thanks to everyone who's joined us. As I said, the webinar has been recorded, so I'll be able to send you all a link to the recording back on our YouTube to watch back or pass on to any of your colleagues. And when I've got a copy of the slides from Tom, I'll be able to send them out to you too. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining us, and yeah, we'll see you on the next webinar. Thanks, Tom. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers. Thanks, Vicky. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.